And I know that both of you have done everything right up till now. And I mean that. It's been 12 years, which is a long time. But it's been true every bit of that year, those years gone by, and it's only gotten better. No. So I believe it will just continue to mature by the finest of ones. I love you.
We are back again. We were back last time, but we're back again. You know, it's been a really busy month for the City Wales team. It's just me and Joe. We don't have like anyone yet. We don't have like a manager who oversees us. That'd be cool if we did, though. You know?
We have a sort of life support crew, I suppose.
True. If the City Wales starts sinking, there is a support team who they'll try. You know.
Yeah.
You know. Anyway, this is Silly Wales. We're a mental health podcast. We discuss things that are somewhat touchy and somewhat sensitive. So if that is not what you're in for, that's not what you're feeling, that's okay. But this podcast is for everyone. And with that being said, it might not be for you. We've struggled this week because we recorded this a few days ago and Discord decided to shit the bed and we were let down. And by we, I mean partially me, but mostly Discord. Like, I blame Discord for everything. Who needs to take responsibility, okay? Who needs to do that? But yeah, we've been having a fairly busy month in May. I'm older now. Joe is joeing a lot. He's been up and down. We've had multiple adventures, and it's been a very tumultuous time. I think I said that completely incorrectly, but oh well. Jesus.
No, it's good, honestly. Like, I think May is probably the most, for both of us, intertwined, like the most complicated month, or where a lot of stuff is happening. And I mean, like, I've come out of all of this planning and shit that I did, which now seems like a lifetime ago. And the events that we get. I mean, the wedding really wasn't that long ago. And I mean, at the time when we recorded and that failed, it was less than 2 weeks, and now it's only just over 2 weeks. Like, it's, you know, it's incredible just how like recent it all was, but it feels like so much longer.
Yeah.
And you know, I suddenly now, with the aftermath of this, I'm getting a bunch of other people telling me should we do this? Should we do that? And stuff. So I'm like a bit hungover from everything, but I'm kind of like going, yeah, sure. I'm just trying to fit things as they go. So yeah. This
we definitely had a journey, because you more than me in regards to like what we're going to discuss. This episode, by the way, is pretty much another Flout Journal episode, because we're going to rework some things to do with mental health this week and things like that. So it'll be journal and recommendation station. But like, as Joe mentioned, it was very intertwined with what we've been dealing with. But Joe was the best man at our good friend Kess's wedding. And I'll pass it over to Joe in a second. But I'll say this now. If I somehow get married, it's highly unlikely. Actually, who knows, eh? I'm not going to rule anything out. I can't be doing the whole best man thing, because I feel like I'm putting so much stress on just one single shoulder. Not shoulders, shoulder, you know? I'm going to have best men, and I'm going to walk down the aisle with like 4 of the best men, like an either corner, walking me down like security guards.
So traditionally, the man doesn't walk down the aisle. We saw that happen, technically.
Well, do you know what,
They're
man?
already
We're both going
there.
to walk down the aisle. That's the thing I'm going to change. We're both walking down the aisle to music of our choice.
All right. So, yeah, honestly, I should say, obviously, to stipulate, it was a good time. Lots of stress leading up to it, including both bride and groom admitting that it was very stressful and everything. And but the day itself was fun. And there was a certain point I just got to where how would you even describe it? I got to a point where the stress stopped being meaningful anymore, and I just kind of went into a fuzzy like sort of experience of everything that just went into a sort of fuck it territory of just like my body was not able to like produce what it needed to in order to be as stressed out as it possibly could be as it was trying to be. I don't know if that's like I managed not to break down, and I managed not to not to do something like really bad, like I don't know, just not appear on the day, or some other kind of problem. I managed to keep some bits in check. Not that I was expecting it to go any other way. I think by that point, like, I think the events of the day, I was just expecting to be the events of the day. But you do spend like every minute that you're doing anything just overthinking like every aspect of what's about to happen, what's going to happen later, what you're doing at this point. Oh, why is your tie too long, or whatever. Like, it's just every single element like gets brought up in echoes. So you come up on the day with Tolga. So you have to get up really early and then very quickly get yourself organized before we all run off to the
I woke up at
to the
5 o'clock. No, like, so as the thing, I tried to get to sleep at like 11ish, I think, and I was like, this is far too late for me to go to sleep. I need to sleep. I was messaging one of my friends, and then I was like, this is bad. I tried to sleep, and I think the excitement, and this happens a lot with me, I've noticed, whenever I'm excited about something, I really struggle to sleep. So I think I was genuinely excited about this. And I really like the idea of getting up early and traveling, but I'm really bad at doing it because I never get enough sleep. So same with the Amsterdam trip, didn't sleep at all. So I woke up at like 5ish after falling asleep at 3. Realized I couldn't get my suit there on public transport properly without risking destruction, chaos, and sadness. So I was on Uber, laid out flat in the back of the Uber, met Tolga, and we drove up. I think it was, I can't remember how long the drive was. I think it was 3 hours in the end, 3-4 hours.
something like that, if I remember. Yeah.
And we breezed through. We got breakfast on the way. I was like, hey, no mushrooms, man. I want more hash browns. They're like, yeah, sure thing. Like, service stations are either hell on earth or heaven on earth, depends on which ones you go to. But if you can get like a breakfast one where they have the breakfast takeaway stuff there, perfect. Because I'm a big fan of breakfast food. So if you give me hash browns, I'm happy. That's it.
Yeah, English breakfast.
Yeah, English breakfast. Like, continental isn't really my speed, but it's the most British thing I'm probably going to ever say in my life. It just doesn't have enough.
Yeah. No, it's true.
Yeah, it's like, here's some bread, here's some leaves, here's some butter if you're lucky. And, it's not bread. It's not like how we see bread. It's legit baguette or like, sourdough or some shit like that. Here's some cheeses, not just one cheese, cheeses. Here's a grape, here's an olive, and ham. And it's cold. It's cold, Joe.
Yeah, no, I there's something about like I used to every exam. My mum and dad were like, we'll give you a proper breakfast, and it was literally in part, if no other reason, it just made you feel comforted and relaxed. So it just reduced my anxiety for like my exam.
Yeah.
Beyond the fact that it did just give me a bunch of energy for the day. So you guys arrive. We rush you into his house so you can like get changed. We all head over. There's a little bit of confusion when we get there, but eventually the service happens, right? Obviously, the entire time throughout the day, I would just say, like, whatever we say, even if it sounds like it went through smoothly at any point, nothing felt like it went smooth. Like, nothing like throughout the experience. I felt like there was always like a small thing here and there that would like slightly shift it around. At the end of it, it felt like, you know, it all got done and it was perfectly fine. But just here and there, you can imagine like there was an extra 10 minutes where something was happening, an extra bit here where something was happening or whatever. And it just ended up making everything weird. And especially because tradition gets involved. And every time that tradition gets involved, it just slows down or really confuses the timing of everything. So you know, and everyone wants it to be perfect for the bride and groom in this particular way and that way. So I'm listening to like, you know, mother-in-laws and friends and others, and just everyone is saying about like one thing or another, and it's like, okay, I guess I'm just gonna have to like, I guess as the best man, there ended up being quite a lot of um uh like there ended up being a lot of pressure in just making things happen in certain ways. Like I just ended up having a lot of responsibility over the course of the day up until a certain point. And then after that, I actually didn't have any responsibility, so I was pretty happy after that for the most part. So the ceremony was lovely. I love the vows. This was your first wedding, so
Yep.
you want to give an idea about what you thought about this. The ceremony is not necessarily the most interesting thing, but I was curious what you thought about like that part of it, since that's not something you've had before.
Like, I, again, as you said, never been to a wedding. I really enjoyed, I think it's because it was a very small and intimate wedding.
Mm-hmm.
So I really enjoyed how connected everybody seemed. Like, my Toga and I, we don't have any connection to like a lot of the people there, except, well, you, Cassis, and his now wife. So it's actually crazy how we felt involved and we were like, you know, a part of it. We were talking to people who we would probably never speak to her for again, really. And it was really like nice and well put together. And then the ceremony was lovely, you know. Like when your bride walks down to the Interstellar theme, I think you're set for success. So I truly thought it was a really beautiful occasion, you know, and these are things that you cherish for a while, you know. And my little flower and my little blazer, you know.
Oh yeah, that was a really
Buy
nice
a
touch,
suit.
actually.
Yeah, I had to buy a little suit, you know. Let's not discuss spending £300 on the suit, but hey, you know, like I'll probably wear that suit again as well because I might use different parts of the suit for different outfits. I'm like, yeah, cool.
It was nice, to be fair.
You know, everyone looks good as well. Like you can rock a suit.
So I obviously that whole part, like the wedding itself and the ceremony, you know, it can look like lots of different ways. This was the first time that it was in like a sort of municipal building as opposed to like a church or a really decked out like hotel, effectively, which is the others. I think I've been to 3 weddings, 2 of them when I was very young, and then the most recent one when I was closer an adult, if not an adult, was at a church. And they're normally quite long and quite boring. I probably when I was a kid they seemed long anyway, but they're generally like not that interesting. Um, Certainly because I was connected to the bride and groom much more. I was way more into it, but I also think that it was generally speaking, it didn't go on too long, and you know it because we were near, you know, we were near to the front. I remember like my cousin's wedding was one at the church. I remember being really far away from them. Like I could see them both, but I didn't really like, you know, I felt quite far away because you're in like pews or whatever, quite a distance away. Whereas this one, it was like, oh, I was literally 2 meters away from them, and almost everyone was. Like everyone was pretty close by, and so when you heard them talking to each other, and when you heard, you know, and everything, it did feel quite close and closely knit and everything. Um, I had to go up and sign as witness because I'm best man, which meant I got to put my shitty signature on their wedding certificate. And I also got asked, "Is your name Joe?" Which is a funny thing to hear, but it's like your name isn't short for anything, and I'm like, no, my name is actually Joe. Like that's it. Which is very unusual, and I imagine that must come up a lot where, you know, someone puts like a shortening of someone's name down, and they have to be like, yeah, but what is your actual name, like on your, on your passport? Like, what's your real name? And it's like, oh, sorry, let me put down not Frederick, all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that was quite funny, and just took pictures, went outside. And is there anything else you want to speak about before I continue?
Um, y- yeah, just like, it felt really, I said it before, but I think what I'm going to add to it is like, it felt like everything was supposed to happen. Like, it didn't feel like this was like thrown together. It didn't feel like there was never a moment, I think, and I'm foreshadowing what you're going to eventually speak about. There was never a moment where it felt like, oh, these two shouldn't get married, like, like it never felt like that. It felt like incredibly purposeful and meaningful because everything should have happened and it just felt right.
Mm. And maybe to spoil a later conversation, but neither of us are that fascinated in weddings, getting married ourselves, particularly. Like, we might be available for it, but we're not like, but
It's
we're
not a
not
life
thinking
goal.
that. Yeah, no, not at all. Maybe at different levels of how we feel about it, but generally, no, it's not like we don't see it as like a step or anything like that. But I have to agree because, and again, yeah, I will end up talking about this when I kind of discuss speech and everything, but it was like seeing them, like just knowing everything about them for so long, it's hard to imagine. It's just very hard to imagine like this. It was like a confirmation of something that was already well established, I guess, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah.
so then it's a very quick, like sudden go off to the venue for the reception. The reception normally does have like maybe a bit of time in between, and I'm not saying there wasn't a bit of time in between, but it's like, oh, there was a sudden rush where it was like getting certain people over to start setting certain things up or start cooking food and things like this, which we were only able to do some of before people started arriving. And again, like the timing thing, I think was the most messed up in this at this portion and at this point in the day. But once you get past like some of this bit, then it's fine. Of just like when people are arriving, like when people are expecting, like what are we doing? When's the speech is happening? Like, are we drinking now? No, not quite yet. Like, there's this very like just because it's like 1:00 or something, so people aren't quite sure what they're doing, or 1:30 or whatever it is. It's like it's a bit of a weird moment, a weird time, and also even though like as you described, like it felt very intimate and so on. I know I didn't know more people than you did there, but I didn't know almost anyone there either. Like I very much knew merely like the family members that were there, and some of them not too well, and everyone else that was there, apart from like I guess the maid of honor, was like the only other person I like super know, and like her man. But then everyone else, it's like I don't really know them. So there's a lot of like, so even as people start arriving and I'm like fucking going haywire trying to like get certain foods out, and of course you did so much help with that, which I thank you for. Even if it didn't feel like it, it definitely made it easier for me to just dictate something to you to do.
Yeah.
I do think I have I have had, I do think I'd make a good like supervisor slash manager. If for nothing else, then I would take on a bunch of stress and then I will start like dictating certain things to people. and then that will reduce my stress down, but I'm happy to take on the burden, if that makes sense. As long as I obviously help everyone to, I don't overburden anyone else. Like I'll try and take on as much as possible, but then meaty out little bits here and there. So you were a wonderful help. And but once everything gets together, finally the bride and groom are allowed in with us. um, as everything is set up, they arrive in. It's very nice, and essentially that's when like food starts happening and things like that. Eventually, we get round to speeches. This is the last thing that I like have to do that I haven't done before in the day. Like we'll bring out some more food later, but that's like the most the biggest thing. I mean, but even then, like there was a long period of time. It was about like 4 o'clock, I think, when we actually started doing speeches. And the whole time, like there's discussions between me and the Maid of Honor about when things are going to happen. Us discussing, trying to figure it out. Like we're sort of trying to run the wedding in the background while the bride and groom are like just kind of living the day and enjoying themselves. If you know what I mean, like just talking to people and stuff. I've got one person in my ear telling me one thing. I got another person in my ear. I speak to the groom. He's telling me something like almost completely different. I have no idea what we should be doing. And so it's just all over the place. But eventually we slam down and we sit down on something. We get to the speeches. I suppose you are in the position to talk more about my speech from the outside, because I'm merely going to give you the experience I felt in that moment.
Well, do your thing first. Explain the speech. And,
yeah. That's what I mean. Like I'll start, and then you can
for sure.
You can comment on my critique of myself. So I wasn't like nervous leading up to the speech, really, because I had done a lot of work prior. I hadn't written down my speech because I wanted it to be natural. But I had made like many bullet points. I was looking at it on my phone up to that point, so I could see on my phone like, okay, this is what I've written. I have an idea, going over things in my head. But then like but then when we got to the point where it was like, okay, we're going to do the speeches soon, that's when it started to raise up and it like really started to spike a little bit. But it still felt okay in a way. But what I didn't realize was what had happened is when you have like stress or nerves, that you actually go past the point of feeling it, and you're now in a different space where you can't feel the nerves anymore, but you just don't work properly. Like something's happened to your brain where you're just kind of floaty, and like you're sort of out of it slightly in just that space. So I didn't realize I'd hit that point very quickly. So I was sort of slightly out of body-esque in feeling, even though in reality I was totally stuck in my body. So I go for the speech, and I do forget a lot of things I want to say. More I should say is I the kind of structure of it, and some of the comments I wanted to make, or some of the, maybe not even jokes necessarily, but I think they could have been funny like moments. Which luckily a couple did come out during the speech, so I did get a moment for people where I actually wanted people to laugh, and they did laugh. But very quickly I was very nervous, and it was very clear to everyone, but everyone was very supportive and very nice, and it really did help a lot, even if it was very difficult for me to get through it. But the one thing I can say was that I was very sincere. I don't think that was lost on anyone. And I, talked about both of them, and then I talked about specifically the groom, the husband at that point, I guess. And I was pleased with the reception I got of it, because clearly I said some nice things then. But I was happy to have spoken about the big thing with their relationship, which is that I had thought that they were married. In my mind, they've been married for so long, because they've been together for a long time, that I've known both of them for so long, that I have this relationship with them, and I'm looking forward to their future. I'm looking forward to where it goes. And we, because the thing is once they've been together, we said this in the last recording, they're childhood sweethearts, in the sense that they got together in college, in sixth form college, about 17, 18, and have been together. I don't even know if it's 17, 18 or so, but it's something like that. So they've been together for like at least 10 years. So we've had loads of conversations over that period of time about each of them, about their future and everything. And it's almost surreal to be in the position where, like now, where we're committing to saying like, oh yeah, this is now we're committing now to the future, when it's like the past is so long already. Like, 10 minutes, 10 years, over 10 years or 10 years beforehand, just imagining the next 10 years afterwards. It's just incredible to kind of think about where we were in that cycle, in that slice, and be like, yeah, that's going to continue again. And just looking across the room at both of them, overwhelmed as I couldn't help but just, discuss how meaningful it is that these two are together, and that, and what that's been like for me, and been like for almost anyone, I think, who has actually been in the social circle with them. And I think that actually that did, I think that it did help, because I was discussing how, them are, despite them being together so young as a couple, they always felt like they were two entities separate, and that everyone could still enjoy both of them equally. As people, and not just as some amalgamation between the two. And that made a huge difference to me, but it made a huge difference to everyone else. And it made accepting, like, if you will, their relationship a kind of truism almost. Like, we just knew that these two were good together. It was I can use this word. I don't think I used this word in the actual speech, but their relationship is one of the least toxic relationships I've ever experienced or like interacted with. Like, the way they are with each other is understanding of one another. They've gotten to the point now where they very much understand how one another is, and how to engage with one another, and how to experience one another's like temperament and things like that.
They're veterans of each other.
Exactly. Yeah, they're veterans of each other. And as I also described, like, they've done a good job, like, checking each other and at the same time growing. Like, they're not, they keep each other in check, but they also recognize that things need to change here and there. Because again, I remember them at the beginning and the late of the relationship. So it's just fun for me to I try to expound upon that at the very least. Like, by the end of it, look at all of this, and then of course, Kessis has been a huge beacon of support for me over the last getting up to 18 years now. So it's a very, very important person to me, and all of this sort of stuff. So that's kind of what the speech was. That's pretty much what the speech was. Almost in about the same amount of time. But and I got tons of people telling me that it was great. Lots of support from people telling me it was great. Some people said it was bringing them to tears, or almost to tears, and things like that, which was very nice. And I wasn't expecting that at all. Like, I was very, very by the end of it, I was like, okay, that went, like, I did it, and I thought, that's satisfactory. I just kind of came away when I finished and sat down, and the maid of honor went, I was like, okay, well, you got through it, and I think that was good enough. I didn't have any like real positive spin on it particularly, beyond just that it was fine. So I'm glad that it was better than I thought it was anyway. So
yeah, like you fucking nailed it. Like I remember you saying I forgot everything, and I missed out so much. And the first thing I said to you was good, because when it comes to public speaking, when you hold a room, when you can pause, and nobody says anything, and everyone's eyes are still transfixed on you. You did that by accident, because you were like composing yourself, but everyone was transfixed on what you were saying. So we were all just pretty much enslaved by your presence. Really powerful word from me. But you need to have that sincerity in order to have that. It's either sincerity or confidence, and you went with sincerity. And it felt like you were emotionally invested in doing the best job as the best man. So then you did. You did all those things. And it just felt like, maybe this episode will have the intro clip of some of the speech, depending on how good the quality is or not.
Oh, yeah.
But like, it's so important to have, again, as you said, Kestis, you've relied on Kestis multiple times, and he's relied on you. But in a way, that speech kind of summarizes how important it is to trust people, because he trusted you as the best man, and then you paid him tenfold, because it's a great speech. You ensured that everyone was looked after and happy. You looked after the things that other people probably wouldn't think to look after. So it's, yeah, that speech highlights the importance of you in their lives, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, it was phenomenal, the whole experience of it in the end. And after that, I was sort of free to kind of enjoy everything. I was given the go ahead, I think, by the mother-in-law that like, yeah, you well done, you did a good job. It's fine now. You can do what you want. Like that kind of was the
Stand
energy and
down.
vibe. Yeah. There was one point, I can't remember if it was before the speech or after, where she asked me like, have you relaxed at any point while we've been here? And I just sort of basically ignored the question. It's just like it's just like who cares? Like who needs that? Like I need to get through this bit or whatever. But once that happened, like I think that's when the day started for me, and also the weather like picked up around 5 o'clock. Um, uh, so it definitely it was a good vibe in general. Talked to a bunch of people that I'd never spoken to before, or barely spoken to, and I think that's something about weddings that obviously doesn't that is the point of a wedding in many ways, that you get to interact with people in this like everyone gets to see who's new into the family, and everyone gets to kind of understand what's going on in a far, in each other's lives, right? Like so it was so like some of the people there, for example, were like family members of the maid of honor, for example. So even they get to see like this person who, uh her best friend's getting married, blah blah blah, like this, this it's understood, right? And it's kind of nice. And I guess this isn't necessarily just a wedding thing, but like an event thing of this variety, that you just get to create like a web of connection, uh even if there isn't like any clear personal connections here and there. The social connections are quite large, like the recognition of like this person related to this person, you know and no one is caught out by it. So yeah, just a kind of minor thing, but I got to meet a bunch of new people, talk to a bunch of people, and
It was
that was
good.
fun in and of itself.
Yeah, it was good, man. It was really good. Like, it was just, I really can't stress enough how happy I am to be a part of it. So, yeah.
Yeah, and we just drank a lot, drank a lot,
Yeah.
danced a lot.
Hey, Tolga, you alive now? It's been 3 weeks.
Yeah, about almost. Yeah, fucking hell. And to be fair though,
Yeah.
he came back with a passion. He came back with a vengeance later on. Like he
Oh, he
actually did
did.
it.
Yeah, he recovered.
It's impressive,
He did
honestly.
recover. But yeah, so that was it. That was the wedding. Is there anything else to discuss with the wedding?
Um, no, not particularly. There's many things we could discuss with the wedding, but I'm not going to go into all of it. There's like 5 different things you could possibly discuss, but um, no, I suppose in your summation, obviously you did. I asked you a little bit earlier, but like just in terms of the whole thing of it, like I'm not saying, oh, have we somehow convinced you, even though I'm not particularly any more interested than before, have we convinced you to like have a wedding? But I think more like, do you get the idea of what it looks like, and
Yeah. Like,
the experience of
my
it?
thing is this: the
Mm.
idea of weddings being long and boring. That's scary because I don't see how you can make something longer than Kez's wedding was. Like, it's walk in, hey man, I love you. Yeah, I love you too. Sign this piece of paper. Cool. It's like you're signing for a football team on a lifelong contract. Just
Yeah,
like, how is it? Like, how can you extend that to any longer than it needs to be? Like, in
yeah. The
theory,
ceremonial, yeah,
a wedding, their wedding was, it might as well have been a German wedding for how efficient it was. It was cool little entrance by the bride. Hey, I love you too. Sign the paper. Hey, Joe, sign the paper as well. Cheers, mate. Cool. Shake hands. Hallelujah. Fuck off. Like, our wedding's longer than that. are weddings? Have the weddings you've been to extended that whole process?
I think the religious one was longer. I don't quite remember the length of it, but I do remember thinking like it was longer. Again, when I was a kid, I don't really remember very well. I was probably bored out of my mind, so even if it wasn't that long, you would have felt it. I do know that some weddings that you can go to, the ceremony stuff is a lot longer. I mean, but beyond just the ceremony, it was a long day, right? Like, I mean, we ended up staying in where the venue was, this little village. I'll just call it. It's Bishop's Frome, Frome, away from Worcester. Just this nice little village, very very beautiful countryside. In the morning, I just went out for a walk and went to the church and things like that. But yeah, the venue was there, and it felt really nice, really like for us. But it was a long day. Like, I mean, you and I ended up getting back to our room at like 1:30, 2, something like that.
Yeah, it was totally
Yeah, because we all helped with cleaning up afterwards, which actually did make it a lot easier the next day and was nice for everyone else. Like everyone that wasn't us three, like got to not have to do anywhere near as much, and definitely didn't have so much overwhelming stuff to do the next day, because we had to be out at that place had to be cleaned by like 12, so it was a lot of shit to get done. And then so that was a real big help, and that definitely cheered everyone up in the morning when they came in and realized it wasn't as much to do. But that was a long a long day. So it's a big thing. And of course, there's obviously, you have to think, like, if you include all the traditional stuff, there's all this extra stuff you have to do. If you think about like me having to plan a stag do, if you think about and and the same thing for like the hen do's and so on. And if you think about like having to buy suits and everything and all this stuff, when you calculate all of this into it, it can be a very expensive fare. Even though I think that their wedding was relatively cheap, they did very well with just finding the sort of cheaper avenues to do everything. Did spend a lot of money, don't get me wrong, but like nowhere near as much as some people do. Which I think is very important, actually, just to be clear. And this is something I just want to say in general. Weddings do not have to, weddings are fine. Like I have, again, weddings are whatever. But this wedding was very meaningful to me, and that had nothing to do with spending shit tons on it. Like the venue for the ceremony, for example, was not a church, and churches are like thousands of pounds to get, and you might have to do it very far in advance, and you might not get it. So it was, and there's nothing wrong with like, I think people can go really far over in terms of like spending money in these areas. I think the wedding dress, which looked wonderful, was also a wedding dress that was surprisingly inexpensive. Like, she did very well picking out and finding it. Our suits were relatively cheap, or at least mine was. Yours was more expensive. The groom's was pretty similar to mine. Like we're like, in general, like, they're still, young people working in, I mean, now it's improving, but like, it's not like they're earning shit tons of money, but they wanted to do this thing. They saved up for a long period of time. So it still was a commitment and everything, but yeah, don't bankrupt yourself. And if you do want to do it, then do it. But I would say do it and then decide, after that, to rather than like choosing not to marry because your budget's not necessarily in the right place. It would be better to, I think it would almost be better to get married and just reduce your budget down significantly to what you actually can do. Like, make your budget like appropriate, because you absolutely will have a wonderful time with a bunch of people that you love and care about. And you don't need all of the trimmings and all the extra shit that's expected from like very traditional side of things. I mean, you literally can just have a wedding, which is like, you do the ceremony without anyone there, or with just the bare few witnesses that you need there at like a town hall, effectively. And then you have a party at some other time, shortly afterwards or whenever, where you don't have to go down the wedding avenue and have as much of like a wedding tax on everything and so on. Like if that's what you want to do, then that would be perfectly fine. And I think would be equally as memorable and meaningful to everyone. You know what I mean? Because ultimately it's about that collective experience and everyone coming to to show up to get invested in what's happening, invested in everything. I went to an anniversary party, which was amazing and was very, very nice. And to be fair, that one had a lot of money to it, and that was an unnecessary thing. But in terms of the meaningful side of things, I didn't really feel like there was much meaning from my end until we all were there, and it was a family gathering that made it feel more meaningful, that it was still, this marriage has been going on for, I think it was something like 30 or 40 years. So, it was getting up there. So it's like, whatever you want it to be is what it will be. And you just need a bunch of people around you to agree with you, and then it's fine. It doesn't matter what it looks like in the end. Yeah.
Like, it is what it is with all that stuff, isn't it, man? Like, it'll be interesting to see. I think out of like our little friendship group, I've decided about Toga's next. So that's where we are really with all that stuff.
Yeah. So moving on from the wedding then?
Yeah, let's do it.
To the last bit for recommendation. So on my end, more recently, when we actually last recorded this, I hadn't actually been, but I was preparing to go. I've gone to a sort of my first sort of mental health related thing, like group thing. And it's not therapy, to be clear. It's more like a bunch of people who suffer in different ways, or have issues or whatever, and it just ends up being more of a like, hey, you can get involved in this thing, or you can get involved as much as you want, and it's just about being a place for people who have difficulties in these areas to find some connection or be themselves in some way. And in my case, in this particular case, is specifically men. So a lot of them were very old, because very few young people can actually go to this place when it's available. Like it's just not that a good time of the week for it. So I was by far the youngest person there, but it was actually quite nice anyway, because obviously all of them were very nice to me. Got quite an interesting mix also of different people. And that day we spent most of it out in the sort of garden space. We planted some tomatoes and other sorts of things. For my first day, I did pretty good. It was pretty nice. But they also have just like general stuff going on. I realize now I could have gone today to another one, but I completely forgot, because I haven't quite gotten into the groove of going to these things. So I think next week I'll probably go to the one on a day like this.
So it's enjoyable.
Yeah, it's just and it's not even very long. It's just like a 2-hour period, and it's just like a social thing, and it was enjoyable, and that's all. And I think if nothing else, but just like a kind of stability of like something to do on days when, because of my work schedule, that I just don't have anything to do, and I'm not necessarily my best friend when I don't have anything to do. So it's nice to have instead other people that you can either call friends or become friends with around you instead. And I'm just glad that like public health is is funding these kinds of things. And it's not even been around for that long, so it's relatively small. But I'd love for it to expand, include more people. But for what it is, it's nice. And then there are other things that I'm planning to get involved with. I'm trying to get through to therapy now, because I really do want to actually antagonize my anxiety, if that makes sense. I want to attack it. I want to get at it, and I want to kind of figure out like something related to it. I'm not against like looking into medication if it might help, but I'll leave that to a professional to decide, or someone in any sort of authority position that would probably be able to make a better decision on it. But yeah, like I very much want to go through a period of change, if that makes sense. I really want to approach this as a period of change and a period of improvement and so on. So I'm really not trying to shy away from what these kind of what something as simple as these little groups can do for me. And I can see that it helps other people. And I think ultimately, I just think that I suffer from a case of constant feeling of loneliness almost all the time. Not sure where that comes from exactly, but I would definitely say that I almost always feel like that. And obviously living in a place which I've not, I've been here for over a year now, but I've not been here and had like a local connection feeling to the city of Worcester in the way that I probably could have developed. And although again, very difficult to do, and money is partly a factor in this.
And your work schedule was fucking awful. Like,
oh yeah, like my weekends are still not for me. I still don't have my weekends. It's one of the big reasons why I want to change jobs now more than ever. Because I'm recognizing that I need that time and space and availability, to be with my friends or to be with anyone else. Like I want to be able to commit to something on a weekend, pretty regularly. And I also want to be able to, just as much as I could commit to something in the weekdays now, I not everything is available on the weekend and the weekdays as much. And and I also knew in the back of my mind every time I would think about it, I'd be like, well, but I am looking for a new job. And if it ends up being like a full-time job somewhere, Monday to Friday, then I'm not going to be able to do this commitment thing. So I want to do it on another day. And so I think I'm just stuck in a position where I'm feeling like even though I absolutely should do things, this is a problem I do recognize. Like if I think that this isn't going to be a commitment for a really long time, like I can't commit to a really long time, then I sort of say no, rather than I think being open to committing to something for a period of time and then changing it up as I go. Like I which is what I've done with this. This is not on a day that a Monday to Friday job would allow me to go to, but I'm recognizing that doesn't matter necessarily.
100%.
And it's more important for me to think about that moment to moment present period than just constantly trying to be like, oh, it's almost like an efficiency anxiety, if that makes sense, where I'm like, oh, I don't want to have to go through the experience of like quitting something and ending it, or I want to get the perfect thing going rather than wanting to get an imperfect thing going. Definitely have that sort of nirvana fallacy issue of wanting everything to be perfect when I do things. Maybe that's what a perfectionist is, so maybe that's what I should be thinking about rather than nirvana fallacies. But regardless, I'm using my philosophy knowledge instead of my normal terminology and everything.
No, like
So yeah,
on the idea of like these initiatives are helping, because like a lot of the time, like context is really key for people. Because like, I remember the place I've lived by myself, Calais being the best example of it. You only really speak to other volunteers, and I was like, I want to meet people who aren't volunteering, and it's really difficult because Calais has, despite it being sort of a touristy location, it really isn't, because it's the home of Marine Le Pen, for example. So a lot of people who are, native to the town never really learn English. And the ones who have are like people who've moved to Calais from places, or they're the younger generation of the people who don't try to integrate or learn English at all.
it's sort of a stop place as well, right? It's like,
It is.
It's like that's where you get off at, and then you go somewhere else in France.
So, and because of how, and looking back now, realizing how many ticks are there are against me. Like I look like a refugee quite a lot. And no matter how I change up how I dressed, I'll still look like a refugee. So I'll get stopped by the police to be like, "Where's your papers?" I'm like, papers. What the fuck does that even mean? What's fucking paper? You want me to draw you something? Like, especially just how like aggressive people are towards people who don't look like they are French, and you don't see a lot of black French people in Calais. So I never got that either. I just got straight refugee. And integrating and like, you know, let's say I want to date somebody in Calais and I happen to be, you know, that just probably wouldn't happen. Like I was on like Tinder briefly and it's a thing, it exists, but the place is tiny. It's a pretty small place in itself. It feels big, but it's actually pretty small. And like, there's no, like, I remember I played some games with my football team who played in like the 8th tier of French football, whatever, as well. And that was really fun. But again, couldn't really connect with people because I didn't know the language well. And it's really frustrating now being able to speak like a really basic level of French, I'll still call it, and being like, I really could have used that 3 years ago now. Like, that would have helped a lot.
Is that only 3 years ago?
Yeah, well, 2-3 years now, yeah.
Oh, that's shocking. I thought it was so much longer ago in my head.
Yeah. Like,
Jeez Louise.
Yeah, from 2020 to 2022. So,
oh, fuck, yeah, okay.
So it's like, yeah, there's these things that exist, and then it's difficult to break out of those routines because, I'm on distribution and doing this and doing that and this and that. And it's difficult to really like integrate yourself properly to a place. When I was in Worcester with my friend, and to see you, and then Kestis and everybody else, really, I was like, oh, wow, this is a beautiful place. And even Kestis' wife now was trying to drop the propaganda that I need to move here. It's like, and the thing is, like, having gone there, I'm like, oh yeah, definitely see why like this place is a pull for people, because it has a metropolitan feel surrounded by a rural atmosphere. So it's like you can be part of the community, but London you get lost unless you're part of really small communities, you know. And if you're in a routine, because you came into Worcester and your routine was not having any weekends and closing the store effectively, which meant there was no time for you to actually integrate into Worcester properly, bar seeing your friends who you know. And it reminded me a lot of the Cali situation because there's nothing you can really learn about like what the city's like London and the hidden rules of London, and like don't look at each other on the train and things like that, you know. Like you don't learn those rules unless you're in London, and you kind of learn the hard way. Like, or don't have your phone out of your hand and wave it around like an idiot. Like you learn very quickly because you have your phone stolen. And it's like,
although that's happening everywhere, to be fair.
Yeah, but I just you'd be surprised with. I know lots of people aren't from London because those people move to London because it's like, oh, I'm gonna move to London and start my life, whatever. Sure, cool, man. Sure, man. But like, you have people who, and they're like telling me, oh, no one like, you know, London isn't bad. Like, you know, you could do whatever, and like, you can't. You really can't. Like, I've said it to my friend, like, mind your own business. You have to mind your business. Like, you can be helpful to people. You can be whatever to people. But at the end of the day, like, somebody asks you for the time. And if you stop, that's a problem. Like, that's an issue. Like, if someone asks you for the time, you better hope you're wearing a watch. So that way I can look down and go, oh, it's 12, whatever, as I'm walking. Because the world is so connected now. You should be able to figure out what the time is, like, by yourself. And those are always like setups and things like that. And a lot of people think, oh, you're being paranoid. I'm not. It's called experience, you know? And when you're in a place like London, there's lots of things that can happen around you and you're not even aware. Like, me and my friend went in a pizza shop and I straight away had noticed that 2 of the kids had knives on them. She was unaware completely. And like, I think she looked over at them like very inconspicuously, not even on purpose. Nothing happened. No interaction at all there. But I was like, don't, please don't. I thought she was going to say something. I was like, please fucking don't. Why would you fucking do that? Because I'm from like a rural place and I'm nice to everybody, which is fucking great. One of the things I absolutely love about her. Great. But in London, Jesus Christ, mate. Like, oh, like, you can just see how that could be like a powder keg moment. It's like, Jesus Christ. But like, I've learned through my job, I've learned through experience, I've learned from everything how to identify if someone's carrying something. but like she would never have to do that. For example, if you take me and put me in like, a rural setting, if I hear, actually it's happened. It was in like Odorique, 40 minutes from Calais, and I was cycling from Odorique to Calais town centre, and I heard this really weird like knocking sound, and I was like, what the fuck is that? And I was checking my shoulder, I couldn't see it at all, and it's really fucking weird. It's like this knocking sound. And then I decided, fuck it, I'm gonna like fully turn my entire back rather than checking my shoulder. There's a horse and carriage right behind me, I just didn't see it. like, I was like, the fuck? I was like, and the guy came by and he was spoken French, and I was like, nothing. And he went, be aware, loud, the horse sound, you move. I'm like, cool. The more you know. It's like, I'm like, and then he was like, animal, run in road. I'm like, okay, animal running road, sure. I'm cycling back now to Odorique, and I just see something scurry along the road. And night, I'm like, shit. He meant animals are running in the road, not his animals, just animals in general also running in the road. And like things like that, I wasn't prepared for at all. I'm like, what the fuck is that? It's a rabbit. Okay, cool. I'm like that's bigger than a rabbit. Is that a deer or some shit like that? I was like, cool. And like just things like that, I'm just out of my element completely. Like, what the fuck is this shit? Help me. Like, or like moths being massive. Like things like that. Like things I wouldn't think to deal with. Experiences mean everything,
Yes. And I do feel like it is easy enough to live somewhere and not actually be in the context to experience those things. So this stuff is happening around you and you don't quite understand why. Or you just actually live your life in such a way where you're so disconnected even from the place that you are that you don't sort of get to experience it. You don't get to kind of like experience what's good about it or whatever. Like one of the benefits of living here is, you're relatively close to quite a few places by train anyway, but also by car. Lots of natural spaces, lots of other towns or big cities in the case of Birmingham. I mean, I'm not that far from Bristol, really. I thought about it, like, I could go to Bristol. I don't know how easy it is, to be fair, by train, since driving. Who does that? I'm from London. But like, like going to Bristol or going to like Bath or something like that. Like, both. I can't believe, because since I've lived in Bristol, I've never been to Bath. It shocks me that I somehow went through my entire life never having been, considering it's like a Roman city and all these other sorts of lovely things. Also just very beautiful. Everyone who's spoken to me about it has told me it. So all of these, like, it's not like super connected, but it's got enough going on around it, and you can get connected to these places. So like one of the things I enjoy some of the most is just going off to somewhere else for the day. There are buses that can take you far, so I can use those to get to like nature spots and things like that. We're in a sort of valley, so there's loads of different hills around and stuff like that. So from a nature perspective, I've got that. And then, going into town, there's lots of different sort of communities. You realize, like, something I was going to mention was I didn't realize, I gained a lot of connection and feeling towards Worcester when I began to actually like engage more with the people who I lived with, who, initially I was, because of my mental state, was very, very distant from, but now I'm much more connected to. And, are part of the sort of Polish community that exists in Worcester, and that was a big thing. Even though I didn't, it's not like I suddenly became connected to a whole community, but I got to experience like a kind of perspective of both England and Worcester and other sorts of things like that. It was enjoyable, and again, even just simply having people to talk to on a regular basis. Like there is something about, even though I might have so little in common with some of the people that I'm meeting, going to these like little sort of like men's mental health thing events or whatever. Even if I have very little in common with them outside of perhaps that there is a struggle mental health wise, like a lot of the conversations we were talking about was addiction, interestingly enough. Lots of discussion about addiction between them, and about like how they've, what's made it easier for them, or like, discussion about cold turkey and stuff and all these sorts of other things. Most in their cases, it's quite clearly cigarettes largely and alcohol. But for me also, it's like, but I have the same like sort of thing that I have to think about, and alcohol is something I still need to keep tabs of, and watch over with my behavior. But I found even just simply going and talking to these people is a lot. It actually does do a lot. It's about, it's one of the reasons why I think being unemployed is so shit, because it's very, very difficult to feel connected to the world around you. Because at least when you go to work, although to be fair, I should say this is not true of everyone, but certainly in the work I've done, I tend to have to talk to quite a lot of people, not necessarily clients, just people in my workplace. And those moments where I get to talk to people in my workplace feels like an actual enjoyable experience, even if it's just us connecting over how shit the job might be, or how or what we think about X, Y, or Z, or whatever. Like, just, and actually I think that workplaces do need to be more loving than a lot of people describe workplaces as being, but I can also understand, that it's tough and some work is just shit. Regardless, I don't think being unemployed helps that, because I don't think that isolation is the answer to that, right? I don't think the answer to a shitty workplace is complete utter isolation from everyone. So I at least try to open my perspective to include these sorts of environments and stuff, and I think it's important to find a way of connection for you. And again, you can find that connection online as well. Like I've discussed my friends being very much connected. D&D is a big one.
We are.
And yeah, that alone is a really big deal. Oh, I completely forgot to mention this. Sorry. This will be the last thing that I'll mention today, and then that's it. Talked about the wedding and everything, and all of that. I've now been invited to another one.
Oh, okay, yeah. You mentioned that you teased this. Go on.
So I've been invited to another wedding. I don't quite know when it's happening. I've been given a date, but I don't know if that's actually going to happen or not, because I don't know how much they know about how quickly weddings can occur and so on, from when they like actually register and so on. So I'm not quite sure whether or not I'm really not sure how that's going to work out, but I have been invited, and at the moment it's in August. So I'm going to get some value out of that suit, hopefully. but the benefit is that I'm not going to be a fucking best man, and I'm not going to be involved in anything up to that point. So it's literally like, you tell me where and when, and the only thing I've got to do is book a train and maybe figure out where I'm going to stay when I'm there, or maybe I'm sharing a place with someone, who lives there or something. And that's through D&D, by the way. That's just like a person I know through that, and
Okay,
and all
there
of
you go.
this. So it's the North crew that I call them.
Fair enough.
Like my North crew. So there's a whole thing there. I also wanted to add to this, because you've told me this so many times, and people have explained this so many times, that I am cared for and liked and whatever. And I've said the same thing to you as well. But I've been told this many times, but it's moments like this where I realize, like, oh shit, there are actually people who are, like, I start to realize now, like, the numbers are working against me, the statistics are working against me, and my trust in people is being improved by the fact that what they're saying seems to be more true the more I realize it. And I'm starting to realize, for example, that maybe when people tell me, oh, I'm a catch, or I'm quite attractive, or I could be, and things like this, or whatever, maybe I should start trusting them. Maybe I should start believing in them, because I had this epiphany recently that I was like, you put a lot of trust in these individuals, and for a good reason, like you love these people and you care about their opinions and so on, but then they tell you something that you don't believe, and you're just like, nah, nah, that can't be true. And it's like, and it's just it's such a weird like oxymoron or dichotomy to have, where you're like, you genuinely trust and love people and their opinion, and then you talk to them and they'll tell you something that you just don't understand, that you don't agree. They tell you something about you and a positive thing about you, and you can't even be willing to admit that they might be right. Like I'm starting to reach a point where I think I need to start believing what people say about me. And at the very least, even if even if I don't like quite believe it in the moment, if I can at least like engage with that idea a little bit more, then maybe one day I'll actually start to believe it myself in its totality, and I'll be able to be like, hey, like, yeah, I've got a bit of sex around me. I've got a bit of like, a bit of this, a bit of that. Oh, what, people do like me for this reason or that reason, and I can actually start to kind of go through my life with some level of both self-love and confidence that I don't quite possess at the moment. But yeah, it's just weird thing suddenly, that whole wedding thing, because the last time we recorded this, that invitation hadn't gotten to me, so I didn't mention it then. But yes, I have now been invited to another wedding, the second one in a year, which is bizarre, just given how it worked out. But it should be a lot of fun, to be fair. I'll tell you some details at another time. But holy shit, like the source for this wedding is great. Just the general atmosphere and vibe of this wedding is going to be fucking insane. And I don't mean it in like it's going to be so. I'm not saying it like, it's going to be so much better than the wedding I was just at or anything. Like, God no. But what I mean is just like, it's just a very there's a little bit of a unique flavor going on around this wedding, which will be fun.
Yeah. I think it's time for. Is there anything else before we?
Nah, let's go, mate.
Well, I'm not even going to say it. Choo-choo! Recommendation station. Who's first? Is it me or you?
You're
it's
on
me.
the docket.
Yeah, boy. Balatro. I've been playing it a lot. It's a card game. It is. I don't know the best way to describe it really, but I'm not even going to try to. I think the best way is I recommend watching it online or just giving it a shot yourself. It's on Steam. It's on iOS. It's on Android. It's on every platform possible. The point in the game is you have cards, and the cards equal points, and you have to hit a certain amount of points. There's different multipliers and different things like jokers and all that stuff, and different ways you can change the game and modifiers and not to make it easier or harder and things like that. It is a game that I think I'm going to be playing, which is rare, consistently for a while. So yeah, that's it. Balatro.
It's very reminiscent of Slay the Spire for me and other roguelikes like that. Like the kind of game that you come back to, Shogun Showdown, the kind of game that you come back to
Is it a roguelike
regularly.
card game?
Technically roguelites, but yeah, it's a roguelite card game. It's a roguelite poker-like game as well. Technically, it's sort of poker-esque in its nature, in its like point scoring. I also add to that there is apparently a multiplayer mod for that. So if there's anyone who's interested who is already playing Balatro and doesn't know this, there are like multiplayer mods that exist. So you can actually play. Yeah, you can play against someone. And I don't think there's team-based stuff, but you can. But in theory, like me and you could like download this or get this mod or whatever and like play each other, which is pretty extraordinary. Like
let's do that right now. Stop the podcast.
I've got other things to do.
Stretch, but like end everything else. Quit your job. That's what we're doing now. We're Balatro streamers.
To be fair, remember my setup isn't the same as it is. I have to do a whole load of stuff for my setup here because I am currently not at my house. I'm pet sitting for the honeymoon of the bride and groom. So for the husband and wife now. So they're going to be away for a while. So I've got to look after all of the animals in their menagerie. So yeah, my thing is Critical Role, which is I don't know if it needs much of an explanation, but it's the biggest next to Dimension 20 and Dropout. It's the biggest D&D, primarily D&D related sort of show channel, however you want to call it, on YouTube. They've also got their own website, but I think you have to be a member to kind of use a lot of that stuff. And it's not their newest campaign that is the D&D campaign, but they invented their own TTRPG system, Daggerheart, which is pretty cool and has lots of unique different things. And I don't have an opinion particularly about whether one is better or not. I have no interest in that. But importantly, I just wanted to talk about their most recent series they're starting, which is Age of Umbra, set in the set in Daggerheart, like the system of Daggerheart, and is the particular world that they're using is one that Matt Mercer made, the GM, the games master, made that went along with Daggerheart, and it's just a really cool system. It's very like Souls sort of world. It's sort of like Dark Souls in many ways, but many other ways not quite. But it's like it. I'm trying to remember the inspirations that he said there were for it. There's definitely some more niche inspirations I think he has for it, but like Dark Souls and that kind of Elden Ring and Dark Souls are like very much like a feeling of that. Very sort of, there's an element, but it's not quite as like kind of Christian Gothic necessarily in its interpretation. But it's cool. It's just a really cool scene, and it's fun seeing some of the characters and stuff, and it's also fun. Like the whole point of it is just to have fun. It's not meant to be doom and gloom, but there's a heavy sense of like doom and gloom over it, which is always just a fun thing to work with, very similar to Curse of Strahd, D&D, and so on. So yeah, if you are interested in any of that sort of stuff, or you've heard of Critical Role and just need a recommendation, there you go.
Yeah, that is a wrap. We'll be back to normal style episodes soonish. We're now in June, so we can't use the May excuse much longer.
Yeah, we'll try to sort of like record more over the next bit to try and make up for it and start having a regular schedule. Who knows? We're going to go with how we feel, and it might not work out that way, but we'll see. We'll try and make each other available as best as possible.
Burn it all down. We're going to take 2 steps to the rear and get out of here. We are in the wind. See ya.
Chet.